We are going to talk about film Twitter. Not just film Twitter, we're talking about film criticism, film discussion, Letterboxd, Cinephiles, Criterion Collection, you name it. And what the fuck has happened to film discourse? So you clicked on this video. What is wrong with film discourse in 2024? You probably can tell me right now. Are you thinking hipsters? Are you thinking Criterion Collection? Are you thinking MCU? Are you thinking Snyder? I think the truth is film discourse and film discussion and just general, celebration of movies has taken a sharp change in the last couple of years. Thanks to the internet, we're living in a different era now. And I think there's three things behind what's happened to us and why everything seems so stupid and everything honestly just seems fucked up. Those three things would be identity, branding, and then we have the big one, fandom. And then on top of that, a little drizzled in, we have apps and social media and stuff like that. Right off the bat, let's talk identity. So we have this thing that happens on the internet now. It doesn't matter if it's anime, if it's a book, if it's a video game. People consume something and then they love it. And that becomes their identity, essentially. So you see this all over the internet with people that change their profile pic to a certain character and their name. A lot of times you'll see people with a Patrick Bateman profile pic and a Patrick Bateman name. And they will float from content to content that has to do with their favorite thing to then comment on their favorite thing. And this happens across the board, YouTube, social media, everywhere. And it's getting to a point where we basically have brigades or platoons of these individual anonymous fans of a certain IP, and then they will inject themselves on the internet with that. And sometimes it just ruins the discourse. So it's like if a new Ari Aster movie comes out, now we have to not only talk about, we like the Ari Aster movie, we then have to put our shield up and watch Twitter swarm with thousands and thousands of Midsummer or Hereditary fans that have the profile pics and the names and the endless tweets and whatever. And it's like, honestly, are they bots? Are they real? We don't fucking know. Who are they? And it gets to a point where it's like, it's just exhausting. And this bleeds into Letterboxd. But the problem with Letterboxd is it escalates the identity that we're seeing online with our favorite products. We're encountering more and more people on these apps that take their favorite product and just elevate it to a new level of fandom, essentially, that all revolves around their identity. Some of it is like, shit posts. Some of it's just cringe. Some of it is like reaching. And then a lot of it is actually also virtue signaling. It's like, I love this film. This is my film. Fuck you. You can't enjoy this film because, like, for example, let's say I'm gay, and then there's a film that comes out that has to do with gay people, like Carol, for example. Now their profile pic is going to be about Carol, and their name is going to be about Carol, and then it's like you can't say anything about Carol because they've lived the life in this film. So they're the authority on this piece of art, essentially, on the internet. And that's a very specific example that's probably only occurred with like one or two people. But if you take that to a more popular product, it can get to obscene levels of identity fandom and identity shielding around essentially IPs or pieces of art. The other issue I have with Letterboxd is it also encourages people to not really think like a critic, or not even a critic. What you should be doing is you should be watching films that you want to watch, first off, and then you can leave your thoughts, you can leave a review. Like, for example, I love Sean Baker's Letterboxd because his Letterboxd is just a journal of all the films that he's watched, and he rarely even puts like a star or anything in there. It's usually just a like, and he says like, I saw it at this theater. It's just him keeping a log of films that he's seen, which is cool. Problem with Letterboxd is that it's a 5-star system, and as we know with video game reviews or anything out there, a rating system that simple just runs into problems. So if you get a review, let's say you review Furiosa, which just came out, which I thought was pretty good. If you give that 4 stars, what if you also gave, Dog Day Afternoon 4 stars? Somebody's going to see your Furiosa review and be like, why the fuck did you give Furiosa 4 stars when you gave Dog Day Afternoon, one of the best films of like the 80s or 90s, 4 stars as well? Are they equal? And then it can go even further than that. Like someone could do a joke review, like they could go see Mario movie and then give it 5 stars, and then you got some Joe Blow down the road telling them, why'd you give this 5, but then you gave this 3.5? And that's stupid. And the other thing that goes on with Letterboxd now that's really annoying, and this comes from film Twitter, is people turn it into like a competition. It's like, oh, I saw this film. I've seen 10 Bresson films. I've seen 6 of the Tarkovsky films. And it's like once they see the film, then they make the review and they put it on the wall, and it's like their little badge of honor. But filmmaking and like consuming art has never been about completionism. Like when you go to an art gallery, you don't like take a checklist of every, Renaissance painting you saw that day, and then you go home and tell people, well, I viewed 30 paintings. How many paintings did you view today? And it's like, this happens all the fucking time, and it's honestly absurd. It actually used to just be in film schools that you would run into this type of talk, but now it's literally everywhere. It's like, oh, I've seen 10 Bergman films. Okay, your opinion is automatically invalidated. And the truth of the matter is like, you can be a completionist. That's fine. It's actually a good little addiction to have. Like, watch a film and then you want to watch like 10 other films and you learn a lot. But some people, including me and like other people, even Werner Herzog said this, is that some of us will just watch one film or 2 films and we're blown away by a certain filmmaker, and then we make a conscious decision to, let's save the other ones. We'll watch them later. Don't worry about it. Like for example, I saw Stalker by Tarkovsky, one of my favorite films ever. I mean, it's not for everybody. Essentially, it's 3 men walking through a wilderness and like talking. But I saw that film and it blew me away. And I saw the rest of Tarkovsky's filmography and I was like, you know what? No, this guy's special. There's something about this guy. He's special. I can come back to these films at a later point in my life and get a lot out of them. Like I did that with Godfather, for example. As a kid, I'd always hear about Godfather this, Godfather that. And then when I grew, I think I was like 24. That was the first time I saw Godfather. And that was like the perfect time to watch that movie. And it was just like blew me away. Because at the end of the day, it's a very adult movie with a lot of complex themes in it. And I'm sure if I watch Godfather again when I'm like 40 years old with my kid or whatever, I'll probably get a whole new meaning out of it, especially when I watch the father-son figure storyline. So stuff like that's great. And it's like, honestly, there shouldn't be this culture of ingest, consume. And this like completionist culture of like, I saw these many films, you're wrong. That should just stop, full stop, because it's getting out of hand. And it's all over Twitter. Going off of identity on Twitter, you have people taking their identity a little too far into the film criticism space, and they start to become what I call like the avant-garde version of CinemaSins. Because any filmmaker will tell you CinemaSins is just a plague on the existence of the internet. Because if you've ever sat down and tried to write a screenplay for yourself, it's not an easy job. And you're bound to, have some holes and some dips and bellows in your story. It's very hard to create a complex story that wraps up perfectly together with 0 plot holes. Like if we're talking about a Christopher Nolan type of movie, if someone's making a film like that, it's almost impossible for them to not have plot holes, especially if they're dealing with like, time bending mechanics and stuff like that. This thing happens all the time is people on Twitter will bring up like multiple images of a film and they'll be like, oh, I saw a tweet the other day. It was this guy. He had 3 films. I think it was like Dog Day Afternoon, the new Trap Shyamalan film, and then I think it was Taxi Driver. And I can pull the image up, and it was like 3 red light images of a profile shot of the actor, and then they had eye lights on them with like a little key. And it's like, it's a typical cinematography shot. It's very flashy. Anybody can do it if you have LEDs or like some type of fluorescence. And this guy said, oh, Brian De Palma in this shot clears the rest of them because he had 2 white eye lights on the eyes. And that is a big issue going on today in film criticism as well, film discourse in general, is the ignorance of the craft, the pure ignorance of the craft. For him to say Brian De Palma clears the other 2 because it has 2 white highlights, first off, Brian De Palma is not the cinematographer. You can look that up. And neither is he the gaffer. You can look that up as well. And maybe this guy doesn't even know what the fuck a gaffer is. Because obviously if he's going to think a director takes all the credit for a lighting choice, then he doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. So, or what about the grip or the electrician that set it up? Are you going to talk about them? So it's like, stuff like that drives me nuts. It's that auteur myth, the auteur myth behind the artist. It's like, oh, let's give all the credit to Scorsese. Let's give all the credit to Quentin Tarantino. And when we talk about film, and it's like, it's easy to come to that conclusion because you see the director on the poster and you see this, that, and the other, but come on, it's like, it's 2024. You should know who a composer is, who a cinematographer is, who an editor is. Like, you need to give the artists their credit, or the crew members their credit. You can't just be putting all the glitz and the glam on the directors. And also, you shouldn't be comparing pieces of art, 3 pieces of art. I don't care who made it. You shouldn't be comparing them as like a work of clinical precision. So we need to look at which image is better than the other, which is honestly just fucking asinine. All right, going on to my second point. Also, this is going to be a long rant. If you've stayed this long, thank you for staying this long. There's a lot more to come. And let me know in the comments below if you like this type of rant video, or this type of, like, old man in the woods type of deal. But let's go to number 2. So number 2 is branding, which is happening a lot with A24 and Neon. Neon is kind of coming on the up and up as a distribution company, production company, as well as A24. But the people that get behind these films, I don't want to be an elitist or anything, but a lot of these people, like, they got introduced to indie film through A24 films that they saw. Maybe they saw, like, I don't know, Enemy or Moonlight or any of these films, and then they kind of attach themselves to this brand or this distribution company. But this is just a company that distributes films for the most part. They don't produce all the films that you see. So these people buy films that have already been made, that have played at festivals, and then they distribute them to the masses, essentially, and they market them and do all that and the other. But they are not the filmmakers. They are not the creatives. They are the suits. They are essentially the gatekeepers of this art form that we spend so much money on, that costs, so much labor and hours and all this. It goes back to the studios, and they're one of the studios. So they're no different than DC, Marvel, Disney, all these big studios. They're just smaller, and they pick more specialized interests. A lot of their money-making efforts have come from horror movies, because horror movies are notorious for having low budgets and big upside. Like you have films like Paranormal Activity or Blair Witch Project. You can look up the gross on those films. It's actually absurd compared to the budget that is on display. So A24 and Neon, they have this thing going on right now where they're kind of pumping out a lot of the indie darlings in the Western world, and they're getting all the credit. So now people are attaching their identity and their elitism and tribalism to these 2 distribution companies. So you go on Twitter and you see people say, oh, Neon clears A24. Oh, no, A24 clears Neon. And they're like, oh, this is A24's year. And it's like, what the fuck are we talking about here, guys? Like, we should be talking about, oh, this person's making a film. They made this film. It's coming out in the fall. Like, we should be excited about artists that we know that are making work, not the distribution companies that gave them the keys to put the film on the screen. We should not be talking about them. And we kind of lost that in discourse in a way. We still talk about filmmakers. We still get excited about certain filmmakers, but I see us too much talking about distribution companies and this, that, and the other. And it's like, it's just exhausting. Like, it's never been this. Like, it's never been this. Like, for example, Denis Villeneuve, I'm pretty sure he made Enemy with A24, which is a fantastic film. It was an indie film I think he made up in Canada, and had Jake Gyllenhaal in it. Great film. That was a stepping stone for him. Now you see him doing huge efforts with Warner Brothers and all these big corporations, and, doing like Dune and Blade Runner and all these things. And like, that was just a distribution company that gave him the keys to put that film on screen. They gave him a leg up. But A24 is not Denis Villeneuve. Like, a Denis Villeneuve film is a Denis Villeneuve film. That's why we get excited to see his new films. So you'll never get disappointed if you follow the artist. If you like an artist, if you like a piece of cinematography, go check out other films that the cinematographer has shot. If you like the editing in something as well, go look on IMDb or something, because you need to find things organically that match your interest. And when you have an exact interest that you like, you then can find other things. And that is why Letterboxd can be a positive for discourse, is you can watch a specific film like Memories of Murder, and then you'll see, like, oh, Burning is recommended next to it, which is a Korean mystery film that came out like 10 years after. And it's like those little tiny minute genres you might be able to find through the algorithms, or you might be able to find through YouTube. The constant discourse of tribalism with your favorite IP, your favorite whatever, it's just completely exhausting. It just takes the air out of all the sails of all discussion. Because this type of fandom is no different than the type of fandom that we see in superhero films and comic book films and even anime as well. And just look at the anime community online to see where we are headed, essentially, because we're going to become that vitriolistic if we keep these habits up. And then thirdly, let's get to the last thing, which is, I already touched on it briefly just now, is fandom. And the big one would be the Snyderverse. Like, I personally believe the Snyderverse or the Snyder Cut or all these things that happened kind of ruined comic book films for me, or just ruined discourse in general about nerdy things that I used to geek out about as a kid. Because we gave the fans what they wanted, which sounds like a good thing, right? We gave them what they wanted. They begged and begged and begged for the Snyder Cut for years on end, and they got what they wanted. So what does that make them now? They're a mob. They know that they can get what they want if they just go ballistic on people on Twitter. So all you have to do is go online and search the name James Gunn on Twitter and go see what all the Snyder fans constantly do to this guy's life 24/7 ever since he became like the president of like all the creative works for DC now. Honestly, if you look at his track record, like Guardians of the Galaxy 3 and all the movies before that, and then all the things that he's greenlight recently, I don't think the guy's doing a bad job. I think the guy's good. I think people are probably going to be pleasantly surprised with some of the things that he greenlit. The Snyderverse, and then there's other pockets of fandom that pop up, like Star Wars fans. Oh my God, Star Wars fans are the fucking worst. So those people, they have been spoon-fed in it's probably like the last 5 years with the streaming services now. They basically get given the content that they want, and the studios will just churn it out for them. And this is not good content either. I'm talking about like Star Wars shows or Marvel shows that is just like constant fan service and constant bloat. Because if you talk to the general audience today, the people that actually like got excited to go see Endgame and just everyday folk who goes to the theater every now and then, a lot of them will tell you like, oh, the Marvel shows and the Star Wars shows like suck now. But if you go online and you read all this shit from people, it's like this small collection of fandom that's keeping these shows alive. They're getting fed what they wanted, but at the end of the day, they're just getting fed like this spoon-fed, hyper-optimized fandom, like this little like IV drip of fandom, and that is keeping them satisfied, and that's what's keeping more and more things coming out. But they've kind of lost the fact of like creating compelling stories. It's more of creating stories that can serve the fandom. So we can build an episode, and then we can have a huge fandom switch where it's like, holy fuck, it's Boba Fett. Holy fuck, it's Luke Skywalker. Holy shit, it's Jar Jar Binks from episode 97. And stuff like that is just like, just stop. Like, we're good. It's good to have it every now and then. Fan service is cool and all when it's written well into a story. But yeah, sometimes it's just like, what the fuck are we doing? Like, for example, Top Gun Maverick, that was a great film, a good example of how to use nostalgia, how to use fan service, and how to also get back to the root of like stories that people used to enjoy, people used to pay money to go see, which people are now calling dad cinema, which is kind of funny. But yeah, it's just like the fandoms have come up way too high. They're getting way more powerful online, controlling which scripts are getting made. And then we have identity, and then we also have branding. And the identity branding people kind of are together, and then the fandom people just like, they're basically just brigades in their little wars. So you have people that like love the Batman film, and now you have people that love the Snyder films. And then these people are now supposed to hate each other because one film goes counter to the other film, and then they're going to attack each other endlessly. And then who knows, maybe they'll kick out James Gunn someday, and then they'll make like the Suicide Squad Ayer cut, and it'll fucking absolutely suck. So it's just like stuff like this is just getting on my nerves, and it makes me feel like I'm not really a film fan anymore, or whatever I would call myself, a cinephile, I guess. It's just a lot of these spaces online are just getting eradicated with all this cringe, essentially. And it's like the only places now that we can find like good discussion is probably in like a rare YouTube comment, or maybe a Reddit post, or God forbid, or just, you know, friends and family, just stuff like that. So I think we got to get back to our roots of discussion and discourse, and just honestly grow the fuck up. And then we won't have these hyper optimized, intense internet issues rising to the surface, which is now affecting our art form and our essentially our entertainment for the next 10 years. So let me know how you guys thought. I hope you enjoyed this this new type of video, just a dude standing in the fucking woods talking. But yeah, this is a topic that I always wanted to get done into a video. I wanted to do like a video essay on this, but then I felt like it would have just been too much work and I would have just got a bunch of rage comments or whatever, you know, especially when you make fun of Letterboxd. But yeah, just ponder on some things. Maybe we can change. Have a good one.